Steve Harvey has spent years hosting Family Feud. He has seen families at their best, at their worst, and at every emotional place in between. But in all those years behind that podium, nothing prepared him for what happened on a Thursday afternoon in April 2025. A husband got caught cheating on live television, not because of a phone, not because of a rumor, but because the other woman was sitting in the studio audience. And when the wife realized what was happening, Steve Harvey did not crack a joke. He did not move on to the next question. He stopped everything. He shut the entire production down. And what he said to that husband, standing between two women whose lives had just collided in the most public way imaginable, became one of the rawest and most unforgettable moments in television history. There was a time when a man's word was the only proof a woman needed. There was a time when the vows spoken in a church or a courthouse or a backyard meant something permanent and unbreakable. But when Terrence Mitchell's double life crashed together on the Family Feud stage, everyone in that studio learned the same painful truth at the same time. Some men do not get caught because someone investigates. They get caught because the universe runs out of patience with their lies. If you believe that the truth has a way of finding the light no matter how deep someone buries it, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now. What happens next on that stage is something that will stay with you for a long time. To understand the full weight of what happened that day, you need to know who Danielle Mitchell was and what she had sacrificed for the man standing beside her on that stage. Danielle was 38 years old, born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama, the middle child of 5 siblings in a household run by her mother, Patricia Hayes, a postal worker who raised all 5 children on a single income after Danielle's father left when she was 3. Patricia was the kind of mother who worked overtime every holiday season so her kids could have Christmas presents. She ironed church clothes every Saturday night. She kept a jar of coins on the kitchen counter and told her children that every penny counted, because a penny was just a dollar that had not found its family yet. Danielle grew up watching her mother do the impossible every single day, and she swore to herself that when she built her own family, it would be different. Her children would have 2 parents. Her husband would stay. Danielle put herself through community college while working at a daycare center. She earned an associate degree in early childhood education and eventually became the lead teacher at a preschool in Hoover, a suburb of Birmingham. She was the teacher who stayed late to clean paint off the tables. She was the one who noticed when a child's behavior changed and called the parents to check in. She was the one the other teachers came to when they were overwhelmed. Danielle was steady, patient, and nurturing in a way that seemed bottomless, as if her capacity to care for others had no limit. She met Terrence Mitchell at a community basketball league when she was 25. Terrence was 27, a warehouse supervisor for a shipping company outside of Birmingham. He was 6'2" with a wide, easy smile and a voice that could fill a gym without trying. He was the kind of man everyone gravitated toward. He organized the league's annual barbecue. He helped younger guys on the team with their form. He called everyone brother and made people feel like they had known him their whole lives. Danielle watched him for weeks before they ever spoke, and when they finally did, she was struck by how present he seemed. He looked her in the eyes. He asked her real questions. He remembered her answers. They dated for 2 years. Terrence met Patricia, and Patricia grilled him the way only a single mother who raised 5 children could. She asked about his job, his debts, his past relationships, his credit score, and whether he knew how to boil an egg. Terrence answered every question with respect and humor. When he asked Patricia for permission to marry Danielle, Patricia looked at him for a long time and said, "My daughter has already had one man walk out on her. If you are not ready to stay, tell me now and save everyone the trouble." Terrence took Patricia's hands and said, "Mom, I am not going anywhere." They married at Patricia's church. Danielle wore a dress her mother had saved 6 months to help buy. Terrence cried when he saw her walk down the aisle. Everyone said it was a beautiful ceremony, and everyone believed that Terrence Mitchell was a man who meant what he said. For the first 8 years, the marriage was solid. They had 3 children. Their oldest, a daughter named Layla, was now 11. Their son, Terrence Jr., who everyone called TJ, was 9, and their youngest, a daughter named Autumn, was 5. Danielle continued teaching preschool. Terrence was promoted to shift manager at the warehouse and worked long hours to provide for the family. They bought a modest 3-bedroom house. They went to church on Sundays. They had family movie night every Friday. To their neighbors, their church community, and their extended families, the Mitchells were what a good family looked like. But over the past 2 years, the rhythm of their life had changed in ways that Danielle could feel but not fully explain. Terrence started picking up weekend shifts he said were mandatory. He started going to the gym at hours that did not match any gym's operating schedule. His phone became a locked vault that never left his hand. He started showering the moment he walked through the front door, even on days he said he had just been at work. Danielle noticed every one of these changes, and each one landed in her chest like a small stone. She asked him once if everything was okay, and he told her she was overthinking things. She asked him a second time, and he said she was being insecure. She did not ask a third time. She told herself that her mother had raised her not to be suspicious, not to be the kind of woman who went through a man's phone, so she let the stones pile up and tried to ignore the weight. What Danielle did not know was that Terrence had been seeing a woman named Brianna Cole for the past 2 years. Brianna was 31, a dental assistant who lived in Tuscaloosa, about an hour from Birmingham. Terrence had met her through a mutual friend at a cookout and had told her he was separated and going through a divorce. He visited Brianna on the weekends. He claimed to be working extra shifts. The gym sessions that ran at strange hours were trips to Tuscaloosa. The locked phone was full of messages, photos, and plans for a future that did not include Danielle or their children. Terrence had been living 2 lives with meticulous care, and he believed he had every detail under control. The Family Feud appearance was Danielle's idea. She saw it as a chance to bring some fun and joy into a family that had felt disconnected lately. The team was Terrence, Danielle, Danielle's older brother Marcus, her best friend from college named Yolanda, and Terrence's cousin Ray. Everyone was excited. Terrence seemed genuinely enthusiastic. He even bought a new shirt for the taping. What nobody in the Mitchell family knew was that Brianna Cole had also bought a ticket to be in the studio audience that day. Terrence had told Brianna about the taping, bragging about being on television. Brianna wanted to surprise him by showing up to watch. She thought it would be romantic. She had no idea she was about to walk into a room where his wife and children were standing on stage. The Mitchell family was matched against the Obasi family from Atlanta, a Nigerian-American family with 4 generations under one roof, and an energy that filled the studio from the moment they walked on stage. The mood in the room was festive. Both families were having fun. Steve Harvey was in top form, cracking jokes and setting up the game with his trademark charisma. During introductions, Steve asked Terrence about his family. Terrence pulled Danielle close and said, "Steve, I have been blessed with the most patient, loving, beautiful woman in Alabama. 13 years of marriage, 3 incredible kids. She is everything to me." Danielle leaned into him and smiled. The audience applauded warmly. The game progressed through the first 2 rounds without incident. The Mitchells won the first face-off and split the second round with the Obasis. Terrence was animated and charming. Danielle was quieter but gave strong answers. Marcus, Danielle's brother, was competitive and loud. Yolanda was a natural entertainer. Everything was going exactly as planned. Then, during a brief production break between rounds, while the crew adjusted the set and Steve reviewed his cards, it happened. A woman in the studio audience stood up. She was in the 4th row, center section. She was wearing a green blouse and had her hair pulled back. She stood up and she called out a name, not loudly, not in a scream, in the confused, trembling voice of a woman who was seeing something she could not process. Terrence. It was Brianna. She was standing in the audience, staring at the stage, looking at the man she believed was her boyfriend with his arm around a woman she had never seen before. A woman he had introduced to Steve Harvey as his wife. A woman he had been married to for 13 years. Terrence heard his name. He turned toward the audience, and the moment his eyes found Brianna, his entire body went rigid. The color drained from his face so fast that Marcus, standing beside him, actually reached out to steady him because he thought Terrence was about to pass out. "Terrence, who is that?" Brianna's voice was louder now, cutting through the studio noise. She was stepping into the aisle, moving toward the front. "You told me you were separated. Who is that woman? Why is she up there with you?" The studio went completely still. 200 people turned their heads between the stage and the audience in unison, like spectators at a tennis match where the ball had suddenly been replaced by a grenade. The production crew froze. Cameras pivoted between the stage and the fourth row. Steve Harvey lowered his cards and looked out at the audience, trying to understand what was unfolding. Danielle stood on the stage, watching this woman walk down the aisle of the studio calling her husband's name. She watched the way Brianna looked at Terrence. She watched Terrence's face collapse, and in a single, devastating moment, every stone Danielle had been carrying in her chest for the past 2 years turned into a boulder. The late shifts, the gym, the locked phone, the showers, all of it clicked into place with the precision of a key turning in a lock she had been trying to open for 2 years. "Terrence," Danielle said. Her voice was quiet, not weak. Quiet in the way that a room gets quiet before a storm breaks. "Who is she?" Terrence was caught between 2 women, 2 lives, 2 versions of himself, on a stage with cameras rolling and 200 strangers watching. His mouth opened and closed. His hands were shaking. He looked at Danielle, then at Brianna, then back at Danielle. He had run out of lies, and there was nowhere left to run. Brianna had reached the front of the audience section. A production assistant gently tried to redirect her, but she was not causing a disturbance. She was standing perfectly still, tears running down her face, staring at the stage. "He told me you were divorcing," she said, her voice breaking. "He said it was almost finalized. He said he was moving to Tuscaloosa. I had no idea. I swear I had no idea." Daniel's brother Marcus stepped forward, his jaw set, his fists clenched. Yolanda grabbed his arm and held him back, whispering urgently. Terrence's cousin Ray had taken 3 full steps away and was staring at the floor, wanting no part of what was happening. Danielle had not moved. She stood exactly where she had been standing when the game was paused, her hands at her sides, her chin level. The tears came, but they came silently. They rolled down her face, and she did not wipe them. She did not look away from Terrence. She held his gaze with the unbroken focus of a woman who was finally seeing the truth and refused to blink. Yolanda, Danielle's college best friend, moved closer and put her hand on Danielle's back. She did not say anything. She just stood there, solid and present, the way a best friend does when words are useless and presence is everything. Later, Yolanda would tell a reporter that the hardest part of that moment was not watching Danielle's heart break. It was knowing that Danielle had suspected the truth for 2 years and had never said a word because she wanted so desperately to be wrong. The production crew was frozen in place. Cameras kept rolling because no one had given the order to stop. A sound technician later said it was the most intense silence he had ever experienced in a studio. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of something so heavy that sound could not survive in it. Steve Harvey walked to the front of the stage. He looked at Brianna. He looked at Danielle. He looked at Terrence. And then he raised both hands and said, in a voice that silenced every remaining murmur in the building, "Stop. We are stopping everything right now." Steve pulled out his earpiece without ceremony and set it on the podium. He walked to center stage and stood between the 2 women, one on the stage and one in the front row, separated by 3 feet of elevated flooring and 13 years of lies. He spoke to Brianna first. "Ma'am, I do not know your name, but I can see that you are hurting, and I need you to know that whatever you were told, whatever you believed, I can see from your face that you did not know. You are not the villain here. You were lied to. And I am sorry that you are finding out this way." In a room full of strangers with cameras rolling, Brianna nodded, her arms wrapped around herself, tears still falling. Then Steve turned to Danielle. He climbed the emotional register of his voice from gentle to firm. "Danielle, I watched you stand next to that man for the past hour. I watched you laugh with him and play this game with him and hold his hand. And I watched your face 2 minutes ago when the truth walked through that door. You did not scream. You did not throw anything. You did not run. You stood right where you are and you absorbed a blow that would knock most people to the ground. And you are still standing. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are and how you were raised." Danielle's lip trembled, but she nodded. Her brother Marcus stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder, his face a mask of barely controlled fury directed squarely at Terence. Then Steve turned to Terence, and the gentleness disappeared entirely. What replaced it was not rage but something more devastating. Disappointment so deep it felt like a verdict. "Terence, I need you to listen to me, and I need you to hear every word. You stood on my stage not 1 hour ago and called that woman the most patient, loving, beautiful woman in Alabama. You called her everything to you. You said that with a straight face, with cameras on you, while the woman you have been lying to for 2 years was sitting in the 4th row, because you could not even keep your lies organized well enough to prevent this." Steve let that land. The audience was dead silent. "You told your wife you were working extra shifts while you were in Tuscaloosa. You told this young woman in the audience that you were separated and getting a divorce. You told your wife's mother, a woman who asked you point blank if you were going to stay, you told that woman, 'I am not going anywhere.' Well, Terence, you did go somewhere. You went to Tuscaloosa, and you built a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie until the whole thing collapsed right here on my stage." Steve stepped closer. "I have failed in marriage, Terence. I am not going to stand up here like I have never made a mistake, but I learned something that you are about to learn the hardest way possible. You cannot maintain 2 lives forever. The truth does not need your permission to come out. It will find a way. It will walk through the door of a television studio on a Thursday afternoon and sit in the 4th row and call your name in front of 200 people. Because the truth does not care about your schedule, your excuses, or your plans. The truth only cares about being heard." The applause was immediate and thunderous. Steve held up his hand to quiet the room because he was not done. "But here is what breaks my heart the most. You have 3 children. Layla, TJ, and Autumn. Those kids are going to find out about this. Not from you, not on your terms, but because this happened on national television. And they are going to have to reconcile the father they love with the man you chose to be behind closed doors. That is the cost, Terence. Not the marriage. Not the embarrassment. The cost is that your children are going to carry this. And they did not choose any of it." Terence was crying. Not the showy kind. The kind where a man's face crumbles inward, and he does not have the strength to wipe his eyes because his arms feel like they weigh 1,000 pounds. He tried to speak. "I know I messed up. I know I destroyed everything. I do not have any excuse. Danielle, I am—" Danielle raised her hand. One single, steady hand. And Terence stopped mid-sentence. "Do not say you are sorry to me on this stage, Terence. Do not say it for the cameras and the audience. If you are sorry, you go home tonight and you sit in front of your daughter and your sons and you tell them the truth. Not the version of the truth that makes you look like a man who made one mistake. The real truth. That you chose to be somewhere else when you could have been with them. That you chose to lie when you could have been honest. That you made your family a backup plan. You tell them that, and then you let them decide what sorry means." The standing ovation was deafening. 200 people rose to their feet. Several audience members were openly weeping. Brianna, still standing in the front row, was nodding through her tears, because Danielle had just articulated something that applied to both of them. They had both been backup plans, and they had both deserved better. Steve Harvey stood on that stage with tears rolling down his cheeks. He looked into the camera and said, "I have hosted this show for a very long time. I have never stopped a taping like this. But some moments are bigger than a game. What I just saw was a woman who found out her husband was cheating on live television because the other woman showed up in the audience. And instead of falling apart, she delivered the most clear-eyed, honest, powerful statement I have ever heard on this stage. Danielle Mitchell, you did not just speak for yourself today. You spoke for every woman who has ever been lied to, every mother who has ever wondered where her husband really was, and every person who has ever had the courage to demand the truth when it would have been easier to pretend. I am honored that I was standing here when you said it. The taping ended there. No more game, no more questions. The producers awarded both families their full prizes. The Obasi family, who had watched the entire scene unfold from their side of the stage in stunned and respectful silence, sent flowers to Danielle the following week with a note that read, "From one family to another, we are praying for you and your children." When the episode aired 5 weeks later, it did not just go viral. It became one of the most discussed moments in American television that year. The clip of Brianna standing up in the audience and calling Terrence's name was viewed over 90 million times. But the clip people shared the most, the one that became embedded in the cultural conversation, was Danielle's speech. "Do not say you are sorry to me on this stage. Go home and tell your children the truth." That moment was transcribed, quoted, turned into artwork, and printed on shirts. It became a touchstone for conversations about accountability, about what real consequences look like, and about the difference between apologizing for the cameras and doing the actual hard work of honesty. Danielle went back to Birmingham and did what she had always done. She went back to work at the press school. She made lunches. She drove carpool. She helped Layla with her homework and let Micah climb into her lap while she read bedtime stories. She did not do interviews for the first 2 months. She did not post on social media. She simply kept her family's life as normal and as stable as she could during the most abnormal and unstable period they had ever faced. Patricia, Danielle's mother, was the one who spoke publicly first. A local Birmingham news station asked for a brief comment, and Patricia, standing on the front porch of the same house where she had raised 5 children alone, said, "When Terrence asked me for permission to marry my daughter, I told him that she had already had one man walk out on her. I asked him if he was ready to stay. He looked me in the eyes and said yes. He lied to me. But my daughter did not fall apart." She raised her hand and she stopped that man mid-sentence on national television. "She got that from me, and I am not ashamed to say I am proud." Danielle and Terrence separated within a month. The divorce was finalized quietly. Terrence did not fight for custody, though he requested and received regular visitation. People close to the family said he had started attending counseling and that, slowly, he was beginning to do the work Danielle had demanded on that stage. Whether it was enough remained to be seen. But Danielle did not concern herself with his journey. She was focused on her own. Brianna Cole released a brief public statement after the episode aired. She wrote, "I want to say directly to Danielle Mitchell that I am deeply sorry. I did not know about you. I did not know about your children. I believed a man who lied to both of us. I cannot undo the harm, but I want you to know that from the moment I heard the word wife on that stage, my heart broke for you. You handled that moment with a grace I can only aspire to. I hope one day you can find peace, and I hope one day I can forgive myself for the part I unknowingly played." Danielle never responded publicly, but people close to her said she bore no ill will toward Brianna. She understood, as she had understood from the first second on that stage, that Brianna was a victim of the same lies. The enemy was never the other woman. The enemy was the dishonesty. The response from viewers was particularly strong among mothers. Thousands of women wrote to the show and posted online about how Danielle's composure had given them permission to stop performing forgiveness they did not feel and start demanding the accountability they deserved. A family therapist in Chicago wrote a widely shared article arguing that Danielle's instruction to Terrence to go home and tell his children the real truth rather than a sanitized version was one of the healthiest things she had ever seen a betrayed spouse say on television. The therapist wrote, "Danielle understood intuitively what many of my clients take months to learn, that protecting children from difficult truths is not the same as lying to them, and that age-appropriate honesty is almost always better than a comfortable fiction that crumbles later." Marcus, Danielle's older brother, gave one interview after the episode aired. He was known in the family for being fiercely protective of his sister, and people had expected him to publicly condemn Terrence. Instead, Marcus said something measured and surprisingly gentle. "My sister handled that stage better than I would have. Better than most people could. I was standing right behind her and I wanted to lose my mind. But she raised her hand and she spoke the truth and she walked out of that building with her head up. My mother did that. My mother raised a woman who can take a hit and keep standing. I am angry at Terrence. But mostly, I am proud of my sister. She did not need me to protect her that day. She protected herself. Steve Harvey referenced the Mitchell episode repeatedly in the months that followed. At a fatherhood conference, he delivered a speech that drew directly from the experience. I stood on my stage and watched two women's lives collide because one man could not tell the truth. And the moment I will never forget was not the confrontation. It was what Danielle said about her children. She told that man to go home and tell his kids the real truth. Not the comfortable version. The real truth. Because she understood something that every parent needs to understand. Your children do not need you to be perfect. They need you to be honest. And when you choose lies over honesty, the people who pay the highest price are always the ones who are too young to protect themselves. 6 months after the episode aired, Danielle's best friend Yolanda helped her start a community program at their church called Whole Families. The program was designed for single mothers and mothers going through divorce, providing support groups, childcare assistance, and mentorship from older women in the congregation who had been through similar experiences. Danielle ran the program every Tuesday evening. She was not a therapist or a counselor. She was simply a woman who had survived something hard and wanted to make sure other women did not have to survive it alone. Within its first year, the program served over 60 families. Layla, Danielle's 11-year-old daughter, asked her mother a question one evening that Danielle said she would carry for the rest of her life. They were sitting on the back porch, watching Autumn chase fireflies in the yard, and Layla said, "Mama, how did you not scream at Daddy on that stage?" "I think I would have screamed." Danielle thought about it for a moment and said, "Baby, your grandmother taught me something. She said a penny is just a dollar that has not found its family yet, and I think the truth is the same way. It starts small and quiet, and most people overlook it, but when it finally adds up, it is worth more than any noise you could make." I did not need to scream. The truth was loud enough on its own. 1 year after the episode, Family Feud invited Danielle back for a special update. She walked onto the stage to a standing ovation that lasted well over a minute. She wore a simple white blouse and her mother's gold earrings, the ones Patricia had worn to every important event in her life. Steve Harvey hugged her warmly and asked how she was. "Steve, I am doing something I have not done in a long time," Danielle said, smiling genuinely. "I am living without wondering. I am not wondering where he is. I am not wondering who he is calling. I am not wondering if the story he told me is true. For the first time in years I go to bed at night and my mind is quiet, and quiet, Steve, is the most beautiful sound I have ever heard." Steve nodded slowly. "Danielle Mitchell, you walked onto my stage and your husband got caught cheating because the other woman was in the audience. That is the kind of thing that would destroy most people, but you looked at him and you told him to go home and face his children with the truth. You did not need revenge. You did not need a scene. You needed the truth to be on the record. And it is, forever." Danielle's story became a lasting part of the Family Feud legacy. It was studied in communications classes as an example of composure under impossible pressure. It was referenced in sermons about honesty and in therapy sessions about healing. Cultural commentators pointed out that what made Danielle's moment so powerful was not the discovery itself, since affairs are exposed on television regularly, but the way she redirected the entire conversation away from her own pain and toward her children's future. She did not ask Terrence to apologize to her. She told him to go be honest with his kids. That shift, from personal grievance to parental accountability, was what elevated the moment from reality television drama to something genuinely meaningful. Family Feud producers later said the Mitchell episode changed their approach to live tapings. They implemented new protocols for unexpected audience interactions and created a dedicated support team that could respond to emotional situations on stage. They also established a confidential counseling referral service for contestants who experienced personal crises during taping. The executive producer said in an interview, "Danielle Mitchell showed us that our stage is not just a game show set. It is a place where real life happens. And we have a responsibility to the families who stand on it." But for Danielle herself, the most meaningful legacy was far simpler. Every evening, she sat on her back porch and watched her children play in the yard. Layla practicing her basketball dribble, TJ drawing in his sketchbook, Autumn chasing whatever bug or butterfly had caught her attention that day, and Danielle would sit there, peaceful and present, knowing that the hardest truth she had ever faced had given her the one thing the lies had taken away: freedom. If this story reminded you that the truth does not need permission to come out, and that the strongest thing a person can do is stand still when everything around them is falling apart, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on that notification bell so you never miss another powerful story. We bring you the most incredible and emotional family feud moments every single week. Real families, real courage, and real strength. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.